All right, so today's lecture will be on chapter 22, an overview of animal nutrition. So we'll be going through the GI system today. Um, Another thing to talk about or mention, I'll be uploading a document today describing what your paper will be on, and then how you'll be conducting your presentations. Again, your presentations, do not worry too much about them. It's going to be a 10-minute quick presentation on Zoom directly to myself, okay? You can have a PowerPoint, you could do this off the top of your head. It really doesn't matter as long as you have that 10-minute presentation well done and um, you've practiced and you know the information. I will be asking you a couple of questions about your topic after the presentation, and that'll help or harm your score depending on how you answer those questions. I'm going to ask you a couple relevant topics pertinent to the research that you've done. Okay, so it'll just be added to that total score for your essay. All right. Something else. That's pretty much about it. So if you haven't selected your topic, please try to get that done soon and start getting your research done. So you have enough time to write your paper, do your research. I'll be going over how to cite your paper next week, okay, during lab. So I'll be uploading a sample paper, and then you can use that as a reference, and also your rubric that you'll be needing, okay? So an overview of animal nutrition. Animals are heterotroph, which means they must break down large organic molecules into usable monomers, okay? So if you remember glycolysis, you need glucose to come in, and glucose can be a monomer of a lot of different things. All right, plants use glucose in their cell walls, the cellulose. Glucose is a monomer to starch and glycogen, okay? So you can have a lot of large organic molecules that have their individual monomers. Proteins, right? Amino acids are going to be the monomer of proteins, right? You need to break down protein in order to access those usable amino acids. Fats or lipids, the energy source is going to be held in those carbon to hydrogen bonds. So you need to be able to break down those bonds in order to utilize that energy source there, okay? So animal diets, there's a few different types: herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. So herbivore, think of herbs or organisms that eat mainly plants and or algae, okay? Carnivore, animals that strictly eat other animals, okay? And then an omnivore, which is like ourselves, we eat both animals and plants. And here's a couple of different organisms that are herbivores, right? So we have our herbivore, carnivore, and omnivore. We have a parrot here eating some plants or fruit, probably fruit that's close to the tree right there, that stem. Here we have a carnivore. I don't know specifically what type of bird this is, but it looks like an aquatic bird because it's eating the fish, eating fish. So this is a carnivore, and an omnivore is humans, right? Homo sapiens eats animals, algae, plants, a whole plethora of different organisms, okay? We even eat fungi. All right, the 4 stages of food processing. We have ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination, okay? So ingestion is the act of eating, the first stage of the food process, right? And this includes chewing, biting, masticating. So there are enzymes that are important for the breakdown of various different polymers upon ingestion, right? So think of the amylase that we have in our saliva. So there is an enzyme that's produced in our own spit or saliva that actually breaks down starch. And that's called amylase. Digestion. This is a mechanical and chemical breakdown of food into molecules small enough for the body to absorb. The second stage of food processing following ingestion. Okay, so digestion. Absorption. This is going to be the uptake of small nutrient molecules by an organism's own body. In animals, absorption is the third stage of food processing, allowing digestion or following digestion. In fungi, it is the acquisition of nutrients from the surrounding medium. So if you remember how fungus is, I believe I briefly mentioned fungi. Fungus does is saprophytic, so it does dump out its digestive enzymes outside of its body in order to break it down into their individual food molecules, right? Their individual monomers. So if there's something quite large, it will dump, or the food molecules are quite large, they'll dump out the digestive juices or enzymes in order to break it down to absorb. Okay. Elimination, this is a passing of undigested material out of the digestive compartment. The fourth stage of food processing following absorption. All right. So from cheese to human protein, so here you have the ingestion, and then you have the digestion, right? So cheese protein getting broken down. So breakdown of protein by human digestive system, right? This can start in the stomach actually. So the stomach, as many people think, is the primary start point for ingestion or digestion, which it kind of is, but you do not do any absorption in your stomach. Okay, so that's something that people have a misconception of. Your stomach does not actually absorb the nutrients from your food. Okay, it starts the initial breakdown of the amino acids, but again, you have no absorption there. Okay, so absorption occurs of the amino acids by cells lining the small intestine. So that is a primary start location of absorption. It transports to the bloodstream to other cells, right? So cells use amino acids from this cheese and other foods to produce new human proteins. Okay, so protein, as you remember, this is dehydration. There's dehydration synthesis and hydrolysis, right? And this will be hydrolytic enzyme working to break down the protein. So pepsin is actually an enzyme that's found in the stomach that helps the start of the breakdown of proteins into their monomers. So here we have pepsin coming in. It's a hydrolytic enzyme, so it uses water in order to break down those covalent bonds, okay? So here we have the amino acid that's separated. Carbohydrates, the same thing. Amylase, which is found in your saliva, actually helps start break down starch molecules. Okay, it could also be found in the GI tract, right? Amylase. And then here we have lipases, which can break down lipids, right? So you have a triglyceride here, right? Your glycerol sugar and your three fatty acid chains. And here comes lipase breaking down these fatty acid chains here. Okay. So different enzymes that are secreted by the body. So digestive compartments. So we have gastrovascular cavity. This is a digestive compartment with a single opening, right? So remember, these are for primitive animals. They serve both as an entrance for food and an exit for undigested wastes. May also function in circulation, body's important gas exchange. Jellies and hydra, remember those are the primitive organisms, are examples of animals with a gastrovascular cavity, right? We do not have this. Alimentary canal, this is a digestive tube running between a mouth and an anus, also called digestive tract. We do have this. And the one thing to note about alimentary canal is that it's a continuous opening to the outside environment. So if you swallow something, you ingest something, that is technically not, excuse me, that is technically not an internal, or yeah, it's technically not an internal cavity. So your lung, your lining of your lung, or your heart, your circulatory system, that's a closed system. Your GI tract or your alimentary canal is considered an open system, right? Because from your mouth to your anus, that is technically all open to the environment, right? That can technically all be exposed to whatever's on the outside, right? It's one continuous tube, and we'll see an image that kind of shows that. And it seems kind of weird to think that when you eat something, it's not really being internalized by you until it's absorbed. Okay, your mouth and your anus is one continuous tract. Therefore, that is going to be one continuous exposure to the outside environment. It doesn't matter if there are many feet of intestine or space or surface area inside your body. That is still going to be technically exposed to the outside world. Okay. Digestive tract. This is a digestive compartment with two openings, a mouth for the entrance of food and an anus for the exit of undigested waste. Most animals, including humans, have a digestive tract, also called an alimentary canal. Okay. All right. So many types of digestive compartments in animals. Here we have the hydras or the jellies. Again, they have a single opening for both their gas exchange, food, and waste. Right. So they can pull in food. So think of a jellyfish. They have their nephridia. They sting their animals or the organism that falls into their tentacles when they bring in their food, and they essentially bring them into a compartment where they have different digestive juices and different absorptive cells that are going to be taking or harvesting whatever food source that they have there. Okay. Um, this is showing a water flea being broken down, right? Digestive food particles. Again, this cannot be absorbed in its entirety right away. There needs to be digestive juices or enzymes that are secreted onto that organism in order to break it down for usable food. Okay. Here you have an alimentary canal or a digestive tract. Excuse me. So think of this initial point of the mouth and the anus as one continuous tract, right? It's one continuous tube. Um, so one way I would explain it is think of a straw being pushed through your hand, right? That straw is technically has one opening to forward and back to the outside world. And that's essentially what this is, right? You have one single opening um, from the mouth to the anus. Okay. All right. So human digestive system consists of accessory organs in the blue labels and alimentary canal black labels. So here is the open surface, right? The mouth, tongue, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, colon, of large intestine, appendix, rectum, anus. These are all going to be the single exposed tube that passes through your body. And you can see that there's a lot of internal tube structures on the inside of the body. But one thing to note is that think of this as one continuous exposed surface to the outside world, right? Your liver, your gallbladder, your pancreas, salivary glands are not. They're constantly secreting or dumping juices into the GI tract. But as far as the black labeled organ systems, these are going to be one continuous tube. So think of that as a one continuous tube to the outside world. Okay. Salivary glands, they produce amylase. They have digestive enzymes as well, others, and they help for chewing or masticating your food. Okay. Liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Right. Liver is useful for detoxifying any chemicals that are in the blood as well as in the body. It also secretes digestive enzymes such as bile or bile salts. The bile salts or bile is going to be housed in the gallbladder. This is going to be dumped into that duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. Okay, this is important for fat processing as well as other types of food molecules. Pancreas, right? This responds to it dumps digestive enzymes into the small intestine, but it's essentially important for controlling or regulating sugar. Okay, so think of diabetes type 1, diabetes type 2. We usually think of, well, mainly diabetes, either faults in insulin production or faults in response to sugar concentration in the body, okay, for a number of reasons. All right, the mouth. So an opening through which food is taken into an animal's body, also known as the oral cavity. A salivary gland, so a gland associated with oral cavity that secretes substances that lubricate food and begin the process of chemical digestion. So remember, amylase is that enzyme that breaks down starch. So starch is a polymer of glucose, and amylase is actually can be found in the salivary gland, or it can be found in saliva. Tongue, this is a muscular organ of the mouth that helps to taste and swallow food. Okay, so this is very important. Taste helps us differentiate things that are toxic or poisonous, right? Many times we do not prefer the taste of bitter, but we like salt, sweet, umami, which is like a meat flavor. But bitter flavors or basic or alkaline flavors is representative, or it points us to the taste of poisons. Acidic flavors, um, Well, acidic flavors aren't too bad, right? But you do have that basic or alkaline flavors are going to be pointing towards a more toxic kind of taste, which bitter is mainly what we associate with toxins. Okay. So here's a nice little diagram of the human mouth. So we have incisors, canine, premolars, molars, and wisdom teeth all the way in the back. So these are the teeth. Tongue, which is that muscular organ that helps push the food down. Salivary glands, again, helping lubricate and dumping those enzymes out. So yeah. Okay. So pharynx, the organ in a digestive tract that receives food from the oral cavity. In terrestrial vertebrates, the throat region where the air and food passes across. Okay. So the pharynx is going to be kind of grouped together with the upper respiratory tract as well. So here we have the epiglottis. Uh, this is going to be important for making sure that when you swallow something, it doesn't go down to the trachea. Okay. So this trachea is protected by the epiglottis. So, and this is where people say, "Oh, it goes down the wrong pipe and you cough it up." Well, this is particular. This is kind of true in regard to the epiglottis, right? This means that you swallowed something, and for whatever reason, it didn't close properly or seal properly, allowing for that food to pass to the esophagus. Uh, yeah, and sometimes you'll have the food kind of backed up into the trachea or the windpipe, and then you cough it up, right? You can also aspirate liquid too, right? When you're breathing or you're drinking your coffee or your water, and for some reason you breathe in or instead of swallow, you will have you will aspirate some liquid, whatever it might be, coffee, water, um, your morning drink. Okay. So here we have the epiglottis closing. Again, this essentially seals off the trachea and prevents food from traveling in your tracheal cavity or into your lungs. And then you have that that's going to be passed down into your stomach. Okay. And again, this is going to be important. This is a normal process, right? You can't really close or open your trachea if you're swallowing, right? Your body's kind of conditioned to not do that, but you can have accidents where you just swallow and it goes down the wrong pipe. Okay. So the esophagus is the channel through which food passes in a digestive tube connecting the pharynx to the stomach. Peristalsis is a rhythmic waves of contraction of smooth muscles. Remember, cardiac, and smooth muscles are not able to be contracted by your nerves. That they're not able to be controlled. Okay, sorry. So they are able to be contracted by your nerves. Forget I said that, but you cannot control them. Right? They're not like skeletal muscles that you can actually move and think about moving. Right? If you wanted to pick something up, I can grab the cup and pick it up. Whereas smooth muscles and cardiac muscles, you cannot control. These are involuntary muscles, right? So this is an involuntary process, peristalsis, okay? So peristalsis propels food through a digestive tube and also enables many animals such as earthworms to crawl, okay? So yeah, rhythmic movement, smooth muscle. We cannot control our smooth muscles, all right? So here we have muscles of the esophageal wall contracting just behind the food ball to relax just ahead of it. So here we have the contraction behind and the pushing, again, contraction, pushing, contraction, all the way to the stomach. And the stomach will be a low pH, so it'll be very acidic. It helps protect the body from bacteria as well as starts the digestive process, but there's no absorption in the stomach. You do not get any calories absorbed in the stomach. Okay. All right. So the stomach is a pouch-like organ in the digestive tube that stores and churns food. Okay. Storage and the initial churning process are breaking down. So whatever you didn't chew properly. Gastric juice is a collection of fluid secreted by the epithelium lining the stomach. Okay. So gastric juices are going to be everything from the pepsin enzymes to very acidic acids that'll be dumped in. They are also the epithelium or the epithelial tissue is going to be secreting a mucous membrane that's going to help protect the stomach from being digested from its own acids. Okay, so pepsin, this is an enzyme in gastric juice that begins the breakdown of proteins by hydrolysis reactions. Okay, so chyme is going to be the mixture of partially digested food and digestive juices formed in the stomach. So this is what you would vomit up if you were sick. Okay, so if you swallowed some food, chewed it up, waited about an hour, and you got sick and vomited up your food, chyme is what vomit is, right? It's a bunch of mixed food with your digestive fluid. Okay, the human stomach, right? So there's sphincters that control. So we have pyloric sphincter up at the top that's going to prevent the food from coming back and spilling, right? The acid in the esophagus, right? You don't want heartburn. Again, heartburn can be caused by this this acid being spilled up to the top of this esophagus and causing those blisters of the lining to be digested or rotted away. So stomach lining secretes juices, acid, enzyme molecules, and mucus. And the mucus is very important, right? The mucus helps prevent the acid from actually chewing or eating away at the stomach lining, all right? And this is how ulcers form. Okay, so if you didn't have the mucus, those digestive enzymes and that acid will definitely cause some issues for that individual, all right? The sphincters are controlling the flow back of food or the inappropriate flow down of acid or food to the small intestine, right? So there's accordion-like folds as well, allow for the stomach to expand. So your stomach can expand quite far depending on how much you eat. Okay, so there are people that eat very little and they're full. There are some people that can consume large portions of food and still walk around just fine. Okay, and I like to compare some of those hot dog eating competitors where people can put down 50 hot dogs in one sitting, which I think is insane. I could never imagine eating that many hot dogs. But your stomach is a very malleable organ, right? It can expand and contract depending on your diet or what you've been eating. Okay, so GERD, so some stomach ailment. So GERD, heartburn, which I was kind of talking about earlier, is a backflow of acid. So think of this pyloric sphincter here having the inability to close or seal off. This is essentially going to have the backspill of acids and digestive juices to the esophagus, right? And this is where you get that coughing up of the acids in your sleep. Some individuals take medications to help control the acid production. It can also be heavily influenced by diet and weight. So individuals that consume certain products or certain foods can have this occur. So the overproduction of acid may occur, and then you have the spilling or the weakening of that esophagus. Also, if you overeat, or if you have if you are a little bit heavier, you can kind of have issues with the sphincters that are found at the top and the bottom. Okay, but this can be leaky if you're constantly filling your stomach up over the amount that. So if you overeat, essentially, you can cause pressure to form, and then the food will come and spill up with those digestive juices. Ulcers, typically caused by Helicobacter pylori that damage the mucous membrane and raise the pH of the stomach. So this is going to be lowering the amount of acid that's there. Can't treat with antibiotics. So many times there's a misconception about ulcers in the stomach. They're not typically caused by stress or well, they could be caused by lifestyle change, but many a times the physicians now have noticed that Helicobacter pylori, which is a microorganism, actually causes many of these peptidic ulcers. Okay, again, Helicobacter pylori will start eroding away the mucous membrane. It'll start raising the pH or preventing the high acids in the stomach, and you also have issues that way. So I actually had a family member with Helicobacter pylori, and it was very bad. So they were not able to eat the same foods. They were constantly having bowel issues and GI issues. And finally, they went in and got checked out, and they found out they were positive for Helicobacter pylori. So it's quite common. Many people don't even know they have it until they go to the physician and they do have ulcers. Okay. All right. So gastric bypass surgery. So these are types of surgery. So an incision is made in the small intestine about 18 inches from where it joins the stomach. The free end of the intestine is then attached to the smaller stomach pouch, which is now has a significantly reduced capacity to store food. So there's a few different methods of weight weight loss surgeries that they can perform. This is kind of, I guess, I don't know if this is one of the first ones or one of the more primitive forms, but I know there's some issues associated with this type of surgery, right? If you bypass a large portion of the small intestine, because this here is a portion of the duodenum or the small intestine, right? So the duodenum has absorption taking place. So if you bypass this whole system, the stomach, as well as the duodenum, or the initial location of the duodenum, you run the risk of actually being malnourished. So not only are you not receiving the same amount of calories, but you're not absorbing some of the nutrients that are important for the human body. Okay. There are other methods like the band, so it's just like kind of like a pressure on the stomach that doesn't allow it to expand. There are surgeries where they actually remove a whole portion of the stomach and seal that up. Okay. These staples essentially make the stomach a lot smaller, and then you have a bypass of a new tube that takes it down to the digestive system. Okay. But again, there are drawbacks to each surgery. This being that you may run the risk of not absorbing enough nutrients or food after the surgery. So you can be malnourished. So not even are your calories lowered, but also your vitamin uptake, your and certain nutrients, certain trace elements that you need in your diet. Okay. So small intestine. So this is the longest section of the alimentary canal. The principal site of enzymatic breakdown of food molecules and the absorption of nutrients. So as I've been mentioning before, the duodenum, this is the first portion of the vertebrate small intestine after the stomach, where chyme from stomach is mixed with bile and digestive enzyme. So remember, the bypass completely bypassed a chunk of duodenum, which is a huge and important part of the absorption process in the GI system. So pancreas is a gland of dual functions. The non-doctrine portion secretes digestive enzymes and an alkaline solution into a small digestive in small intestine via duct. The endocrine portion secretes the hormones insulin and glucagon into the blood. Okay, so the alkalinity is a basic a solution, again, to neutralize the acids from the stomach. Okay, so there are other digestive enzymes that break down large sugars, larger proteins, but the alkaline solution is very important. Okay, the pancreas does secrete this alkaline solution that helps prevent that acid from damaging the lower intestines. Okay, so it neutralizes the acid. All right, so here we have chyme squirted from the stomach to the duodenum, is mixed with digestive juices in the pancreas, liver, gallbladder, and the lining of the duodenum itself. So here we have the innervation of the liver, bile duct, right, into the intestine. You also have this, the pancreatic juices being innervated here in the duodenum as well. So right after the chyme comes through the stomach, right, it's stored with all the acid and some digestive enzymes like pepsin, comes into the small intestine, the duodenum, and then you have the expulsion of the bile and the pancreatic juices into the duodenum. Again, the pancreas is going to be neutralizing the acid that's coming from the stomach, right? The alkaline products as well as those enzymes are going to be neutralizing that stomach acid, okay? So the gallbladder helps digest fats, but can be removed with no ill effects. So that I would put a big asterisk by no ill effects. Many times you see mothers that have had children needing gallbladder surgery. They do have gallstones typically often after a child. So one of the things that we've noted with mothers who've lost their gallbladder is that they cannot eat the same foods because they lack the ability to essentially they have the ability to break down the fats, but they don't have that gallbladder that's going to help control the bile salts or the bile that's being produced. So you remove the gallbladder, right? You still have that duct, that innervation of the liver, but you lack the ability to have stored bile. So what happens sometimes is if The same thing if you're lactose intolerant. Okay. Lactose intolerance is, remember, isn't an allergy to lactose. Lactose intolerance means you lack the enzymes to break down that sugar. So what happens is if you consume that sugar essentially does not get broken down in the body, and then it reaches your colon or your large intestine, and there's bacteria in that region of your GI system that loves lactose. So E. coli especially can break down lactose very quickly. When that occurs, gas, overgrowth of bacteria occur, and then diarrhea persists, right? You'll have very, very bad diarrhea after, right? Because of the overgrowth and the gas, and your body recognizing an overgrowth of microorganisms in your gut means, hey, we got to get them out of there. Same thing can happen with the gallbladder. Okay, if you lack the ability to break down fats, those fats that are not broken down will travel into the large intestine, and the microorganisms there will love to eat that for you. Okay. And so what happens is diarrhea persists because of the overgrowth of those microorganisms consuming the fat. Okay. So this is quite common with individuals that do have their gallbladder removed, right? They have a very, very bad uncontrolled diarrhea. So not fun, right? So no ill effects. I take that with a grain of salt there. Okay, so yeah. Bile. So this is a solution of salts secreted by the liver that emulsifies fats, breaking them into small droplets, and aids in their digestion. Sorry. Liver, the largest organ in the vertebrate body, the liver performs diverse functions such as producing bile, preparing nitrogenous waste for disposal, and detoxifying poisonous chemicals in the blood. So the liver is innervated by the circulatory system as well. So it's not just innervating the duodenum. It has implications throughout the whole body. Okay, so liver performs functions in the circulatory system as well as the digestive system. A gallbladder is an organ that stores bile and releases it as releases it as needed into the small intestine. The liver's location between the intestine and the heart provides a good illustration of how interactions between body systems keep us healthy, right? The liver interacts with both the circulatory system as well as the GI system. So as you remember before, I was talking about the mouth and the anus being one continuous tract. Okay, so imagine an elongated donut that's analogous to a tube within a tube. Anatomy of a human alimentary canal. Food does not actually enter the body until it is absorbed by the cells lining the alimentary canal. Okay, so just think of this as one continuous tract, right? Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense. You eat, it comes out one way, it comes out the other. One continuous canal or tunnel. Okay, right. So here you have that one continuous canal, and then you have the anus, right? This essentially can be considered the exposure to the outside environment, right? Because again, you have one continuous area. All right, small intestine and nutrient absorption. So here you have the small intestine or the duodenum, right? Intestinal wall. You have the smooth muscles. You have the innervation of blood vessels. Those blood vessels are going to be used to absorb the various nutrients that are going to be present there. Excuse me. You have epithelial cells that have a large amount of surface area. The surface area can be brought on by the microvilli, right? So these microvilli, again, are going to have provide that surface area to absorb more of that nutrients, right? So nutrient absorption. The reason why you have villi or microvilli present in your intestinal wall is it's in order to absorb the nutrients, right? The more surface area, the more likely you're able to absorb whatever's being passed through. Okay. We do have innervations of capillaries as well as lymphatic vessels. Again, there are there's GALT in the GI tract. This is gut-associated lymphoid tissue. Again, this is going to be allowing for the passage of any pathogens or the sampling of pathogens in your gut. So another important thing of the GI system, which we really won't get into because it's beyond the scope of this class, is your GI system is very important for sampling the outside environment and what you're consuming. Okay, it allows for your body to recognize potential pathogens. It allows your body to uh, uh, kind of build or mount an immune response to whatever may or may not be present in your food source. Okay, um, and so these lymphatic vessels are for, right? They're constantly filtering out whatever's present in the blood in order to sample to ensure that there's no pathogens there. Okay, because there's a lot of microorganisms here. Your body contains many microorganisms in your GI tract, and your GI tract also has it to play an important role at mediating that, right? You don't want an overgrowth of microorganisms because that's bad, but you do want those healthy organisms there, right? Such as E. coli or generic E. coli that can be present there, or other types of bacteria that help aid in digestion. Okay, important to sample to ensure there's no pathogens like a Vibrio species, or Aeromonas, or any type of GI pathogen that you might have. But it's important to make sure that normal flora or the normal organisms are left alone, that your body doesn't attack. Okay, because then you can have other types of diseases like ulcerative colitis or colitis in general, Crohn's disease. Those autoimmune diseases are believed to have bacteria are believed to play a key role or a crucial role in those diseases, right? Maybe it's an inappropriate amount of bacteria, an inappropriate type of organism, and your body is or your body is having an inappropriate response to those organisms that are essentially normal. Okay, and it's an autoimmune disease, so very important that your body regulates that. Okay, so the nutrient absorption, as you see here, through these villi and microvilli, will absorb in between the cells, and then you have the lymphatic system in the blood that can bring in that nutrients that way. Okay. So here was mentioned a little bit before the human microbiome. This is a collection of genomes of individual microbial species present in a particular environment, such as the human intestinal tract. Okay. Um, Unlike the harmful bacteria that cause ulcers or cholera, most of our microbiome illustrates the principle of mutualistic symbiosis, an interaction between two species that benefit both. And it's true. Our gut bacteria are very important, right? This is why they have so many new drinks on the market. They're trying to advertise to individuals. Like, drink this live culture yogurt, drink this live culture kombucha or tea or what have you, right? A microbiome is very important to maintain in your gut, right? This is why you can have issues with taking antibiotics, extensive consumption of antibiotics. I'll tell you right now, when I had my strep throat, I had to take amoxicillin, and it's a broad coverage of antibiotics, so it covers both gram negative, gram positive. So my stomach was not, or my GI tract was not doing okay after, right? I wasn't able to eat the same amount of food, the same types of food without having some stomach issues, right? Stomach slowly getting back to normal, but there have been studies done where after the consumption of antibiotics, it could take years for your gut flora to be back to normal. And it may never be back to normal because you might have wiped out any important organisms that may not be brought back, right? So that's why it's important to maintain a diet, healthy diet, um, and consume things that are going to provide or support a good microflora in your gut. Okay. So large intestine, the tubular portion of the vertebral alimentary canal between the small intestine and the anus. Okay. The appendix is small finger-like extension near the union of the small intestine and large intestines. Feces is a waste of the digestive tube expelled through the anus. Rectum, the terminal portion of the large intestine where feces are stored until they are eliminated. And anus is the digestive system opening through which undigested materials are expelled. Okay, so be able to identify define these. All right, so here you have the transverse colon. You have so the colon, ascending colon, transverse, descending colon, and then you have the anus and rectum, where the rectum you're going to store the feces there. The appendix, again, it's considered one of those useless organisms or organs. People say it's a vestigial organ, or a member of vestigial organ in evolution. There you go. Can you think of the word evolution? Is something that's useless, does not serve a purpose, but kind of gives evidence to how we were before we evolved. But it does have it does have a purpose, right? You have some issues where you have consumption, or ancient humans had consumption of raw meat or certain types of seeds, and your appendix help deal with those issues or those types of food. Okay. Um, yeah. So here we have the beginning of the small, or the end of the small intestine, the start of the colon. Okay. And again, the colon's main purpose, again, the small intestine's main purpose is to absorb nutrients. The colon's main purpose is to reclaim water from your stool. Okay. So again, there's a lot of liquid that's involved with the processing in the small intestine, but this liquid gets reabsorbed in the colon. Okay. And this is where you have all the bacteria, right? You do have bacteria in the small intestine, but a lot of the large portion of the bacteria is found um, in the colon. Okay. So this is also where, again, we absorb the water back into our bodies. The rectum, again, is going to be the area where you store your feces, and the anus is going to be the circular muscle that controls the expulsion of the feces. Okay. A key, or not a key fact, but interesting fact is it's actually the same tissue as your lips. Your anus is your sphincter is the same tissue um, as your lips, which is, I mean, it's the same tube connecting themselves, but same tissues. All right, so we have ingestion, food in mouth, digestion, mechanical digestion and chewing in mouth, churning in stomach, chemical digestion, saliva in the mouth, acid and pepsin in stomach, enzymes in small intestine, right? So here we have the digestion and absorption of the food, and then nutrients and water, absorption in the colon, as we nutrients and water in the small intestine, water and large intestine. So important to note there. So nutrients, again, very, very important in the small intestine, but large intestine is going to be water reclamation from your feces, right? So elimination, feces formed in the large intestine, elimination from the anus. Food is fuel. So one of biology's overarching themes is the transformation of energy to matter. Remember cellular respiration? So being able to break down the food into usable energy to store it as ATP to use as work in the cell is important. Okay. So here we have fuel organic molecules such as glucose, again, glycolysis. Then it can plug into the mitochondria. Remember, glycolytic pathway breaks down that 6-carbon sugar into smaller carbon molecules. Then it can plug into citric acid cycle, and then eventually plug into the ETC and the electron transport chain, right? That can provide that electrical chemical gradient, which then we can use as a source to harvest or fix our phosphates onto our ATP molecules or ADP molecules. Okay. So calories. A calorie is the amount of energy that raises the temperature of 1 gram of water by 1 degree Celsius. Commonly reported to us as calories with a capital C, which are kilocalories. These one calorie that you see on a food label, right? One of these calories is going to be 1,000 of these regular little 8 baby calories, right? So this is calories are reported as this on our food labels. Metabolic rate is the energy expended by the body per unit time. Basal metabolic rate, or BMR, is the number of kilocalories a resting animal requires to fuel its essential body processes for a given time. Okay, so I think there, yeah, here we have I think we've seen this before, but so one of the main things that people talk about is uh, the amount of energy we're able to expel during workouts, right? And I think many times people get, unless you're one of those really high-end endurance athletes, you're really not burning a lot of calories from your diet if you work out. Okay, the majority of the calories are taken up by your body or your normal metabolic processes, like your brain. Your brain utilizes a lot of energy. Your normal body processes utilize a lot of energy. In comparison to uh, um, aerobic work or running or some sort of cardio, you you don't utilize that much. Okay, so you have to run for quite a bit of time, or you have to actually work out for a large portion of your day in order to burn the amount of calories that you need, right? So think of a simple swimmer or competition swimmer, competition runner. I mean, those people run for or swim for hours and hours and hours and hours. Okay, um, so yeah, this is per hour. So running, dancing, cycling per hour, which is it really is not that much calories if you think about how much an hour of running would be. Uh, that's quite a long time. Oops. So food is building material. So essential nutrient, a substance that an organism must absorb in pre-assembled form because it cannot synthesize a nutrient from any other material. A dietary shortage of any essential nutrient causes disease. Humans require vitamins, minerals, essential amino acids, and essential fatty acids. So essential amino acid is any amino acid that an animal cannot synthesize itself and must obtain from food. 8 amino acids are essential for human adults and 9 for babies. Okay. So a plate of red beans and rice provides the same essential amino acids as a steak. So there's a misconception here, right? That we can't get all of our nutrients directly from plants, but for the most part we can. And a lot of the grains that we have are supplemented with iron as well as folate, so B12. Um, and that is essentially to overcome that hurdle or that lapse that we have in our diets, right? We typically don't. Historically, those have been a limiting nutrient, but now we supplement our food with everything. So um, iodine and salt, right? We have iodized salt. That's going to be a nutrient that we need in as a portion to prevent goiter or issues with our thyroids, right? But now we supplement our salt with it, and it's readily available everywhere. You get plenty of iodine in your diet. Most people get too much salt, and they get enough iodine. Okay. So here are different essential amino acids. We have methionine, valine, threonine, phenylalanine, leucine, isoleucine, tryptophan, and lysine, right? And you can get these from both, many of these from beans or corn, okay? Um, so again, an adult can obtain all 8 essential amino acids by eating a meal of corn and beans, okay? Complete meal. So many societies have a staple meal that provides a complete set of essential amino acids by combining a grain and a legume. So again, you have peanut butter, you have peanut butter hummus, which are chickpeas, and rice and beans. Again, those are going to provide you the majority of what you need in terms of your amino acids, okay? Your essential amino acids. You get everything from this plate of food or from the hummus, okay? Vitamin, so vitamin, an organic nutrient that an organism requires in very small quantities. Vitamins generally function as coenzymes. There are 13 vitamins essential to human health. Okay, here they are. So vitamin B, B1, B2, nascent vitamin B6, B12. So again, this is where we lack. This is folate. So essentially, we lack a lot of B12 because there was a limitation on what animal products we can get back early on in the development of humans. We ate a lot of plants, nuts, seeds, grains, but vitamin B12 again is going to be essential for for storage in our bone marrow as well as production of different types of white cells. Okay, biotin, so we get that from legumes. Vitamin C, raw fruits. So vitamin C is actually water soluble. So these are all water soluble. Sorry, it's important to note this. This is why I put this here. So vitamins that you take in a multivitamin that are water soluble, you pee them out. Okay. So I don't know if you've ever taken a vitamin C, 5,000 milligram tablet. They're huge, right? You swallow them. And within a few hours, you're going to be peeing out very dark urine. Okay. And that's from the vitamin C tablet. So, and that's common. Or your urine it'll smell like vitamin C or that orange smelling tablet. And again, this is because these are water soluble. Your body will accept the amount of vitamins it needs, but then you're going to lose the rest of it in your urine. So there's really no point of taking 10,000% of your daily value of vitamins, right? You're just going to urinate them out and put a little stress on your kidneys for no reason. So fat soluble vitamins, those are a little different. Vitamin A, vitamin D found in dairy products and egg yolk. You can also get vitamin D from the sun if you just walk outside and get enough sunshine in the day. Vitamin E and vitamin K. So oil-based vitamins or fat soluble vitamins can be quite dangerous. You can overdose on vitamin E or fish oil. Okay. And that's kind of scary. Okay. So just remember to be careful with the fat soluble vitamins. Take your daily amount if you are supplementing that into your diet, if your doctor recommends it, but don't overtake it. Okay. Because those fat soluble vitamins can put a very large strain on your liver. And they can cause a toxicity in your body if you consume too much. So keep that in the back of your mind. Okay. So too little vitamin A can jeopardize your vision. Too much can turn your skin orange. So remember, vitamin A is fat soluble, so it will stick around. You don't just pee this out. This can stick around in your body and actually cause a toxifying event. So I've seen this in the clinical setting as well, where there was a child that had that was not able to pass stool, and so the mother decided to give the child oil in order to clear or lubricate the GI tract, which is a big no-no. This is a complete misconception. Do not do this. That child was actually poisoned because of the amount of oil the mom was giving the child. Okay, it's toxic. Your body cannot process oil. It's not water soluble, right? It's a lipid. You need a special processing event or special enzymes to break that lipid down or to process that liver in order to be excreted in the body by the body. Okay, so it's difficult to process fats, much more difficult than water soluble vitamins. So be careful with that. So mineral, a nutrition and inorganic chemical element other than carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen that an organism requires for proper body functioning. Essential fatty acid and unsaturated fatty acid that an animal needs but cannot make. Omega-6 in membranes is important, right? You need to consume this in order to add this to your membranes to allow for that stability for your cells, okay? So remember, calories in a nutritional label are going to be that big calories. So one of these calories is equal to 1,000 of those little calories. So it's important to be able to read your food label. Again, we have different vitamins at the bottom. So iron, calcium, vitamin C, vitamin A, and these are going to be your daily values, right? In a 2,000 calorie diet. Some people eat more than 2,000 calories. Some people eat less. Serving size is important to note too, right? Many times we consume way more than we need to in comparison to the serving size, right? So typically we'll eat 500 to 1,000 calories of this whatever this is because we serve ourselves, 6 cups instead of 2/3 of a cup. Okay. So malnutrition. So malnutrition is the absence of one or more essential nutrients from the diet. So you see this in third world countries. So a form of malnutrition due to inadequate protein in diet causes fluid to enter the abdominal cavity, producing swelling of the belly. Kwashiorkor. So this is again the lack of certain essential foods, certain essential vitamins in the diet. So again, this is one of the main reasons why we supplement vitamins into some of our food products, okay, especially the food products that we send overseas, or the food that we're sending to countries that are suffering from either poor economic or economic disparity, or you have a famine. We definitely send food that's going to be high in calories, and again, we want to supplement those foods with folate or different vitamins that they're not getting in their normal diet, okay? So anorexia nervosa, so this is an eating disorder. So an eating disorder that results from self-starvation due to an intense fear of gaining weight, even when a person is underweight. So again, this is quite common. We see this readily in the United States, or body dysmorphia, where they're obsessed with the losing the weight, even though they individuals are very malnourished. Bulimia, so this is an eating disorder characterized by episodes of binge eating, followed by purging through induced vomiting, abuse of laxatives, or excessive exercise. Um, and again, with these individuals, you typically see increased body hair due to the loss of fat on their external skin. So the increase in body hair, both bulimia and anorexia, you'll typically see bad breath or poor, yeah, maybe even sometimes poor dental hygiene. Again, bulimia with the acids being having your teeth being exposed to that acid, it's not good. Okay, anorexia, you just lack the food that's in the GI tract, so you'll typically have the bad breath from uh, uh, the overproduction or the underproduction of acid, as well as the organisms that are living in the mouth after not having the food. Okay, also the severe immune system deprivation from lacking of nutrients and proper calories. Okay, so again, uh, very terrible. Obesity, an excessively high body mass index, a ratio of weight to height. Um, Body mass index or BMI, a ratio of weight to height used as a measure of obesity. This is kind of not the best measure. There are other tests that can give you a better understanding of that individual, right? It doesn't really take into account muscle mass or doesn't really take into account bone density. Some people are just naturally bigger than others, right? Uh, and you have to take into consideration their bone structure and muscle structure. So BMI is kind of an inappropriate measure because you can have a healthy individual that low blood pressure, low body fat, but still is over their BMI range, and maybe they have thick bones or extra muscle, or they're just a little more wide than typical people their height. Okay, so there are exceptions to that. So yeah, here's a BMI, body mass index, based on your height and based on your weight, right? So let's say, let me see where I'm at. Yeah, I'm a little overweight. But yeah, if you go here and you do the weight calculation, um, I should be all right here about 150 to 160, but I'm more in the overweight category. So, which I think was a lot of people, according to this BMI index, there's some subjectivity here, so you got to take this with a grain of salt too, right? This is a measure, but it's not the best measure. Um, a lot of people can look at this and be like, well, I run every day, I'm pretty fit, um, you know, but if you have a lot of muscle, it can throw it off, right? Or if you're larger bone structure, you just weigh a little more. So it's not the most appropriate measure of weight or healthiness, I guess. Okay, but it's a good start. All right, so that's it for today. And then let me show you your labs. So I've uploaded a few labs. So there's enzyme concentration, enzyme pH, enzyme temperature, and enzyme activity. So remember we talked about enzymes before. I'll just go through one or two. We talked about enzymes before in terms of what they're able to do and why they're able to do it, and as far as what um, controls the reaction of that enzyme. So, oops, I think not this one. Enzyme activity. Let's go down. So this is probably gonna be a more difficult one. Watch the video. They're using catalase. So remember, catalase is produced by our body naturally to combat reactive oxygen species. So remember, we talked about antioxidants, and then catalase is that enzyme that breaks down the reactive oxygen species or hydrogen peroxide that can be potentially formed in our body. So we use hydrogen peroxide readily for disinfection or antiseptics, right? So we can use hydrogen peroxide to clean wounds. But this is essentially going to be showing you different mechanisms or different ways to control the reactivity of that enzyme. Okay. So you're going to be performing different experiments using catalase. All right. So what is your hypothesis of the experiment? You're going to look for reaction rates. You're going to look for how pH or different chemicals are affecting that, right? So just follow through. You have 4 of these. They should be really pretty simple. So one will be on acid, right? How does acid control pH? Or how does pH control the enzyme and how the enzyme functions, right? It should control it quite a bit. You can denature an enzyme with too much heat, or you can lower an enzyme or slow the enzyme activity with less heat, right? Enzymes have an optimum heat range that they like to work in. Right? There's pH, there's heat, there's concentration of substrate, right? That'll control how the enzyme works. Also, remember, collisions of the enzyme are random. So random collisions, meaning that it just needs to bump. It has to have a random chance to bump into the substrate in order to perform that, or lower the activation energy to perform that reaction. Okay, so it's something to think about when going through this lab. Okay, so go ahead and get that done. You got till next week. If you have any questions, please email me about that. Okay. I only have 1 student today, so if you have any questions, you can ask me now. If not, we're done for today. All right, well, that is it.